I found a secret room full of photos of me when I was 8. My parents said I imagined it. 15 years later, 6 dead kids proved I didn't, and one of the killers was my father. They always said family was everything, but no one tells you what to do when your family is the thing that breaks you. I was 8 years old when I learned what monsters really looked like. They didn't have fangs or claws. They wore khaki pants and carried barbecue tongs. They laughed too loudly at family reunions and made everyone feel safe. My monster was my uncle. It happened during one of those typical weekend gatherings. The kind where the adults drank and talked about mortgages and car insurance while the kids disappeared into the house, playing games, inventing adventures, screaming through hallways. It was loud, messy, normal. That day, we were playing hide and seek inside my Uncle Mark's house. The rules were simple. Nothing outside, no attic, and don't hide in the laundry chute because someone got stuck there last summer. I was small and quick and wanted to win. I slipped upstairs while everyone else was still arguing about who'd be it. The second floor was quiet, dimly lit, and filled with that dry smell of unused rooms. At the far end of the hall was a door I didn't remember seeing before. It didn't have a doorknob, just one of those loose, creaky handles that turned funny when you twisted it. It was perfect. I ducked inside, squeezing past some heavy coats that smelled like old cologne and cedar. I crouched low, trying not to breathe too loudly. My heart was pounding with the thrill of the game. But then something strange happened. I leaned back and felt air, cold, damp air. There was another door behind me. It wasn't like the first. This one wasn't meant to be found. I didn't even notice it until I shifted and saw a faint line in the wooden paneling. I pressed my hand against it, and it creaked open, just a few inches, but enough to let out a smell that didn't belong in a house full of laughter and potato salad. A smell like mildew, rot, and something worse. A smell I wouldn't understand until much, much later. I stepped through. It was a small room, no windows, no furniture, except for a beat-up desk and a single metal shelf. There were binders stacked neatly on top, each one labeled with a name. There was a laptop on sleep mode, the screen faintly glowing, and on the desk, dead center, was a black binder with white tape across the spine. My name was written on it. I didn't breathe. I just stood there, frozen, trying to make sense of what I was looking at. I opened the binder with shaking hands. Inside were photos, dozens, maybe hundreds, all of me. Some taken from outside my bedroom window, others of me playing in the yard, riding my bike, brushing my teeth, and some, I don't know how else to describe them, were private, violating. I was just a kid, but even then, I knew what I was seeing was wrong. I don't remember leaving the room. I think I ran, or maybe I floated. All I know is that by the time I was downstairs again, my whole body was numb. I didn't say a word until we were home that night. I told my parents everything. I remember sitting on the edge of their bed, my knees knocking together, choking on every word. I told them about the secret room, about the smell, about the binder with my name, the laptop, the photos. I begged them to believe me. My mom went very quiet. My dad didn't say anything at all. Then she said, "You probably just had a nightmare." My dad nodded. "You've got an active imagination." "Sweetheart, you shouldn't snoop around in other people's homes. It's rude and dangerous." I felt like I was screaming underwater. My whole body was shaking, and all they could talk about was politeness. I tried to tell them again. I described the photos, the smell, the hidden door behind the closet. My mom's voice turned sharper. "That's enough. Do you have any idea what you're saying? You could destroy this family. That word, destroy, as if the truth was the threat. Not what I had found. They told me never to speak of it again. So I didn't. I stopped going to family gatherings. I made excuses. I locked my bedroom door at night and left the hallway light on. I started checking every window before bed, and eventually, like all kids do, I did what I was told. I buried it. Until 16 years later, when the past kicked down the door. I was 24 when it happened. It was a Tuesday, I remember, because Tuesdays were my grocery days. The one routine I actually stuck to. I was standing in line at the checkout, scrolling through my phone while the woman ahead of me argued about expired coupons, when a headline caught my eye. Local man arrested in attempted abduction outside elementary school at... I nearly kept scrolling. Stories like that, tragic and disturbing, were sadly too common. But then I saw the mugshot. Uncle Mark. The world didn't spin. It just stopped. Everything else. the beeping of the scanner, the cashier's sigh, the kid whining about candy, vanished. There was only his face staring back at me from the screen, older now, more worn, with new lines etched around the corners of his eyes, but still unmistakable. Uncle Mark had been arrested, and suddenly, I couldn't breathe. I abandoned my cart, just walked out, left everything. I didn't even remember unlocking my car or turning the key. But I remember the girl's face, the one in the article. She looked like me, not vaguely, not sort of. She looked exactly like I had at 8 years old. Same dark bangs, same wide, cautious eyes, same pink dress, same tie-dye sneakers I used to beg my mom to let me wear every day, even when they were falling apart. It was like watching a ghost version of myself frozen in time. And that's when everything came back. The hidden door, the black binder, the smell, the sound of my own voice breaking as I begged my parents to believe me. I called them that night. I don't know what I expected. Maybe some acknowledgement, a confession, an apology. But the second I brought up Uncle Mark, my mother's tone turned brittle. That was a long time ago, she said tightly. Let sleeping dogs lie. Let sleeping dogs lie. Like this was just some family squabble. Like the man who stalked me with a camera was nothing more than a regrettable misunderstanding. My dad got on the phone next. This has nothing to do with you, he said. Don't go digging things up again. You don't know the damage that kind of talk can do. And there it was again. Damage to them. It wasn't about what had happened. It was about who might hear about it. 2 days later, I got a call from the district attorney's office. The woman on the line introduced herself as Jacqueline Wilson. She spoke gently, like someone who's used to delivering bad news with a soft voice. We have reason to believe you may have been one of his earlier victims, she said. Your name came up during the preliminary investigation. I said nothing. I didn't know what to say. She continued. We found a binder with your name on it in your uncle's drawer. My skin went cold. They'd found it. After all these years, the thing I had tried to forget, tried to tell myself wasn't real. It was real. It had existed. It still did exist. But here's what chilled me the most. They hadn't found any other binders. No laptop, no secret room, no other victims, just mine. And in that moment, I realized something terrifying. That room I found, it had been emptied. Someone had cleaned it out. Someone had protected him. I was shaking so hard I could barely hold the phone. Jacqueline asked if I remembered anything else. Anything that might help them. I told her everything. About the room, the smell, the binders with other names, the layout of the hallway, the hidden latch behind the coats. I didn't think it would matter, but a week later, Jacqueline called again. We found it, she said quietly. Exactly where you said, the closet, the hidden panel, the room, and then she paused. Her voice dropped. There were binders, dozens, a laptop, hard drives, journals, burial maps, video logs. I couldn't speak. My throat closed. Some of the names matched missing child cases. She continued. Some of the children, their bodies were never recovered, until now. The horror hit me, in waves, not just because of what he'd done, but because I told them when I was 8, and they did nothing. They told me to be quiet. They told me it would destroy the family, and now I understood why. Because they already knew, and they let it continue anyway. The prosecutor's call came 2 days later, just as the light was starting to fade outside my apartment. I stood by the window, staring at the pale outlines of the city. When her name flashed on my screen, I picked up with trembling fingers. Jacqueline's voice was calm, but I could hear the edge in it, like someone tiptoeing across broken glass. We found it, she said. The hidden room. Exactly where you said it would be. I didn't speak. I couldn't. My breath caught in my chest as she continued. We found the laptop, the binders, the shelving. Multiple books labeled with children's names. Some of them match missing persons reports dating back 20 years. A few. We only had dental records until now, but the notes, the maps, your directions led us straight to the heart of it. My knees buckled, and I sat hard on the floor. A sob crawled up my throat, but it wouldn't come out. Only silence, only cold. My uncle wasn't just some perverted creep with a camera. He was a monster with a system, a structure, a history. He had done this before, many times, and for years, no one saw it. Or worse, they saw it and stayed quiet. I should have felt vindicated, but all I could feel was the crushing weight of the truth. It wasn't just about me anymore. I was just the thread, and pulling it unraveled a whole damn tapestry of silence. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat on the edge of my bed and stared at the wall like it owed me answers. I thought about the girl I was at 8 years old, small, brave, desperate to be believed, and how quickly that little girl had learned to swallow her truth for the sake of the family's image. It made me sick. The next morning, I drove to my parents' house. I told myself I was just dropping off some old mail. But deep down, I was searching for clarity, for closure, for proof that I wasn't crazy for still wondering just how deep this went. My dad wasn't home. Mom wasn't either. The house was still. The kind of quiet that felt like it was holding its breath. And then I saw it, his study door, slightly ajar. I'd never been allowed in there, not even as a kid. It was always Dad's space, with that extra edge in his voice that meant, don't even ask. But that day, something in me snapped. I walked in. Everything about the room was pristine, too pristine. But it didn't take long. I went to his desk. Top drawers, locked. Bottom drawer, loose. I tugged. It opened. And there it was, a single binder. Same style, same plastic sleeves, same cold dread that shot through my stomach like ice water. This one had a different name on the spine, not mine. But the format was identical. I flipped it open, hands trembling. First page, a photo of a girl, maybe 9, playing on a swing, happy, oblivious, hunted. I dropped the binder. I couldn't breathe. The floor felt like it tilted beneath me. This wasn't just about my uncle. This was my father, my own dad. Not just covering for his brother, not just ignoring the signs. He was part of it. The denial shattered. The stories they told me to silence me. The way he'd always brushed off my fear. The way Mom insisted. I must have misunderstood. No, they knew. Or at least, he did. And he kept going. I stuffed the binder back in the drawer, slammed it shut, and nearly tripped over myself trying to get out of the house. When I made it back to my car, I just sat there. Engine off, air dead. I held my keys in my hand for what felt like hours, unable to start the car, unable to process what I'd just seen. I was shaking so hard I could hear my teeth clicking. What the hell was I supposed to do now? I had just uncovered that both the men I had once trusted, the men I had once loved, were part of something that could only be described as evil. I finally drove home on autopilot, nearly missed my exit twice. When I got in the door, I locked it. Then I checked the locks again, and again. I closed the blinds, sat in the dark. And then I did the only thing that made sense. I called the one person who had never once made me feel like I was crazy, Jacqueline Wilson. Her voice on the line was like a life raft. I told her everything, what I found, where I found it, what it looked like, who the binder was about. She went quiet for a moment, then asked, "Are you willing to help us investigate further?" I said yes before I even thought it through, because deep down, I knew this wasn't just about me anymore. This was about every kid who never got away, every child who never got to grow up, every secret someone else tried to bury. And if no one else would speak, then I would, even if it meant destroying what little was left of my family. The detective they sent to meet me looked like he hadn't slept in weeks. Stephen Matthews, mid-30s, coffee-stained shirt cuffs, a notebook filled with scribbles only he could decipher. We met at a corner booth in a quiet diner a few blocks from my apartment. The kind of place where the booths are cracked, the waitresses don't ask questions, and the regulars mind their own business. He slid a small object across the table. It looked like a flash drive. "This is your wire," he said, keeping his voice low. "One button on the side. That's it. Keep it on you. Don't draw attention. Don't push for answers too hard. Just let him talk." I stared at it, heart pounding so hard I could hear the blood in my ears. "You really think he'll just confess to me?" Matthews leaned back. "People like your father, they don't always confess out of guilt. They confess because they think they're still in control. They want to justify what they did. Make you understand, make themselves the victim." I hated how much that made sense. The next day, I called my dad. My voice shook when I asked if we could get lunch. I told him I was confused, scared, that I just wanted to talk about what was happening with Uncle Mark. There was a pause, then he said yes. We met at the same diner he used to take me to when I was little, back when a milkshake was a cure for anything, when I believed my dad was the safest man in the world. Now I sat across from him in that same booth, the flash drive in my pocket, quietly recording every breath. I started carefully. "I went into your study," I said. "I found the binder." He didn't look shocked, not even surprised, just tired. "You shouldn't have been in there," he said. That was it. Not "what binder?" Not "you're mistaken." Just that same old tone of quiet control. I pushed harder. I asked him how long it had been going on, if he'd known what Uncle Mark was doing, if he'd been part of it. He stirred his coffee for so long, I thought he wouldn't answer. Then he looked up, eyes bloodshot, voice flat. It started when we were kids, he said. Mark was older. He did things to me. Back then, I didn't understand what it was. I thought it was normal. I didn't have words for any of it. I watched his mouth move, trying to feel something. Pity, maybe, rage, but all I felt was cold. He said it started with games, innocent touches that turned into something else, that eventually Mark taught him how to do it, too. How to watch without being seen, how to document, how to detach. You knew what he was capable of, I whispered. And you still let him into our home? You let him near me. He looked at me for a long time, really looked. And then, quietly, he said, I thought I was protecting you, by keeping you away from him, by acting like nothing happened so it wouldn't escalate. You let him photograph me. I didn't know, he said quickly. Not about that, not until you told us. I swear. I didn't know if I believed him. I didn't know if it mattered, because even if he didn't know, he knew enough, and he stayed quiet. Then, I asked about the other girl, the one in the binder I found in his drawer. He went silent. That told me everything. I shoved my food aside. I couldn't take another second of sitting across from him. I stood up. I have to go, I said. He didn't try to stop me. I walked out of that diner and drove straight to Detective Matthews. I handed over the wire, told him everything. He and Jacqueline listened to the audio while I sat in the corner of the room, knees bouncing, stomach churning. I watched their faces change as my father's voice crackled through the small speaker. No denials, no outrage, just cold facts delivered in a flat voice. Jacqueline turned to me when it ended. It's enough, she said. Not for conviction, but enough for a warrant. Enough to search the house. And 2 days later, they did. They found more binders, hidden in a false compartment in his study. More victims, more evidence. My mother called me in hysterics, screaming into the phone about what I'd done, how I was tearing the family apart. I hung up on her because she was right. I was tearing it apart, and maybe it needed to be torn apart. Maybe destruction was the only path to truth. The morning my father was arrested, I didn't cry. I didn't scream or fall to the floor or feel like I'd lost someone. I just watched, silently, from my parked car across the street, the engine still running, a coffee cooling untouched in the cup holder beside me. 2 officers walked him out the front door of the house I grew up in. The house with the creaky steps and the dead grass he used to blame on the neighbor's dog. He wore handcuffs, no jacket, just his sweater from the night before, wrinkled and hanging awkwardly on his smaller frame. My mother followed behind them, clutching a bathrobe around her as if that could hide her shame. She didn't look at me, and I didn't wave. I stayed there until the cruiser turned the corner and disappeared. And then I drove away, hands steady, eyes dry. I don't know what I expected. Relief, justice, closure. What I felt was nothing. A vacuum, a long, echoing silence where the word Dad used to mean something. Jacqueline called me later that day. The warrant had held. The evidence was solid. My wiretap, the hidden binders, the floor plans of his study matched everything I described. They had enough to charge him. But there's more, she said. Your testimony may still be necessary. If this goes to trial, the jury will want context. Emotion, a human face behind the horror. I said yes before I even thought about it, because I wasn't doing this just for me anymore. I was doing it for the names on those binders, for the families who never got to say goodbye, for the children whose photos were cataloged like inventory, like trophies. Still, that night, I barely slept. I tossed between memories and nightmares and the sound of that closet door creaking open. My apartment felt too small, the air too thick. My lungs couldn't expand the way they should. Everything felt haunted. The next day, I got another call from the jail. It was my father. At first, I let it ring, but something in me needed to hear what he had to say. I answered. His voice came through the static line, low and hoarse. There's something else, he said. Something I haven't told anyone. Another place. My stomach tightened. A second cabin, he said. Out near the state line. Mark used it. I didn't go often, but I know it's real. He kept records there, ones he didn't want me to see. I was quiet for a long time. I could hear the scratch of him rubbing his face. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Because I'm not getting out of this, he said flatly. And if there's anything left I can do to make this right, to make sure no one else gets hurt. It's this. I didn't believe in redemption, not for men like him, but I passed the information to Detective Matthews anyway, and 2 days later, they found it. The second cabin, tucked in the woods, hidden behind layers of trees and an unmarked gravel road. Inside were boxes, hundreds of them, labeled, dated, cataloged, journals, Polaroids, videotapes, maps, even burial coordinates. The horror wasn't over. It was just getting deeper. Matthews called me that evening. His voice stretched thin. 6 more children, all confirmed missing persons, all found, and then, more quietly. Your dad's name is on several of the entries, not just as a bystander. That was the moment my knees buckled. I fell to the floor in my kitchen, the phone slipping from my hand, the tile cold beneath me, unforgiving. I wasn't just the daughter of a coward anymore. I was the daughter of a predator. And suddenly, all the silences of my childhood made a different kind of sense. The way he locked his study, The way he made me swear never to talk about that day again. The way he always said, we protect family, as if it meant something noble. He hadn't protected us. He'd buried us. And now, he would finally be unearthed.